Welcome to Creepy Stories from Around the World. Before we jump into today's story, I wanted to take a moment to thank my subscribers for your support. Also, we are trying something a little different with the artwork for this story. If you like it, or not, drop a comment below. And if you aren't yet a subscriber, why not? It is free. Anyway, I hope you enjoy our latest story.
The story starts with a hum. Not the kind you hear from a tired light bulb or a vent about to give out. This was deeper, heavier. A sound that didn't seem to come from anywhere but from everywhere at once. A sound that made the air vibrate in his skull until even his heartbeat tried to keep time with it. Now, listen, a moment before that hum, Martin had been sitting in his office. That's what makes this story so cruel. He wasn't out hiking, or exploring caves, or doing something reckless. He was just at work. One blink, he's leaning back in his chair, stretching sore shoulders. The next blink, the world has lurched sideways and he's standing in a hallway he's never seen before. The walls were yellow, not bright, not clean. A sickly shade, the kind you'd find in a child's playroom 30 years after the paint had rotted in. The wallpaper bubbled in spots, peeled in curling strips. And the carpet, oh, the carpet. It sagged beneath his shoes, damp, carrying that sour stink of mildew. Above him, the lights buzzed, flickering like they wanted to die, though they never did. And that hum, pressing down on him the whole time. He tried the only thing a sane person would do. He called out, "Hello?" The echo came back stretched and warped, like a recording on damaged tape. Not quite his voice anymore. That's when the fear settled in his chest. Not the kind that comes in one sharp jolt, but the kind that takes root, slow and heavy, until every step feels wrong. He walked, he turned corners, he counted his steps, tried to make a map in his head, but every hallway looked the same. Some bent back on themselves, some ended in walls. He couldn't trust even his own sense of direction. And then finally something different, a stain. It clung to the far wall just past a flickering bulb. At first it looked like water damage, but as he crept closer, it shifted, glimmering faintly, oily and black. The surface swelled outward as if the wall itself was breathing, and then a hand pressed against it. From the inside, fingers dragged down the paint, leaving warped trails. A palm bulged forward, then slipped away. That's when the hum deepened and the whispers began. Thousands of them, overlapping, sliding against one another until they scraped at his thoughts. That was enough. Martin ran. He crashed through a doorway, and the yellow walls fell away. Cold concrete, pipes running overhead, dripping water in slow ticks, rust and mildew thick in the air. The hum was gone, replaced by the groan of distant machines. He didn't know it, but he'd slipped into what people call level 1. The storage floors. The hallways here were wider, but no less cruel. Furniture lay in heaps, chairs stacked like bones, desks stripped bare, filing cabinets with drawers yanked out, papers spilling across the floor. Some sheets were blank, some were filled with words that blurred and shifted if he stared too long. And then, this part still gives me chills, he passed a stack of old computer monitors, dead, dust-covered. But as he stepped by, one flickered to life. Lines of text raced across the screen faster than his eyes could follow. Then they froze. One message, "You shouldn't be here." The screen cracked. The light died. Martin kept walking, but the machines above him shifted, groaning like something vast just beyond the walls was turning in its sleep. He thought he was alone, but then came footsteps. At first faint, then louder, pacing with his own. He turned, and in the dim orange glow he saw it, a figure, tall, human-shaped. Relief flared, but then he saw the face. There was no face, only a smear as if someone had dragged wet paint across reality. The head twitched from side to side, each movement punctuated by static that rippled through the hall. It tilted toward him, sniffed the air. And then it began to walk. Martin didn't wait. He ran, but the thing matched him step for step. No matter how fast he pushed himself, it stayed close, its static bursts breaking through the air, always just behind him. At last he crashed into a stairwell. Bare concrete walls, a rusted railing spiraling down into black. Air drifted up from below, cold, foul, smelling of rot. Behind him the door creaked open. The faceless figure stood in the frame. It didn't chase him this time. It only tilted its head as if offering a choice. Martin's throat tightened. With nowhere else to go, he stepped onto the stairs. Time unraveled. Each step clanged into the dark. He passed a broken railing, a crack in the wall, a brown stain. Minutes later, he passed them again and again. The stairs weren't taking him anywhere. They were folding him in place. He stopped. His chest heaved, his breath ragged. Above him, the door was gone. Below, the dark stretched forever. And then the whispers came back. Not outside him now, but inside, pulling words from his throat before he could form them. "You don't belong here. You never did. You were never supposed to leave," Martin screamed. But the sound that came back wasn't his anymore. You'd think the stairwell would have been his way out. Down, up, anywhere. Just movement. But that's not how the backrooms work. Martin pressed his palms to his ears, trying to shut the whispers out. It didn't matter. They weren't in the air anymore. They were in him, twisting every thought, every memory, repeating his own words back like a choir made of broken mirrors. And then, the stairs were gone. He blinked and he was standing in a place so hot and loud it nearly dropped him to his knees. Steel and concrete everywhere. Pipes thick as tree trunks lined the walls, rattling with pressure. The ceiling soared up and vanished into shadows. The air reeked of oil, rust, something scorched. The hum had changed. No longer a vibration in the walls, but the groaning of machines clanking in their own rhythm, endless and grinding. Level 2. The mechanical halls. You know that kind of heat where you can't swallow properly, where your tongue feels swollen and your throat turns to sandpaper? That's what Martin felt with every breath. The sweat poured from him instantly, stinging his eyes. The halls here were narrower, pipes snaking along both sides. Control panels sat crooked in the walls, their gauges spinning wildly, lights blinking in patterns that didn't make sense. Some screamed red warnings, some blinked green, then yellow, then nothing. And carved deep into the steel, in letters so jagged he could almost feel the desperation in them, was a message: run when the machines stop. He stood there staring, chest heaving, the heat pressing against him. Whoever had written it hadn't been calm. They dug the words in with fury, with panic. He walked on, the floor shaking under his feet. The machines groaned and hissed, the sound so constant that after a while it almost became invisible. Almost. And then they stopped. The silence was instant, crushing. And silence in this place? It never means safety. From somewhere in the pipes came a scrape, long, heavy, then a dragging sound, metal on metal, and then it moved. Martin froze, his heart trying to punch its way out of his chest. He lifted his eyes, and in the dim glow he saw it, a bulk pulling itself along the walls, joints grinding, sparks shooting where its body scraped the steel. For a moment, he swore he saw eyes, dozens of them, blinking together like bulbs, but then they winked out, and only darkness remained. The silence made it worse, and then it crawled toward him. Martin broke. He ran. The corridors rang with his footsteps. Pipes screamed above him as the thing dragged itself forward, filling the space with sparks and metal shrieks. The heat grew unbearable, as though the creature itself was burning and everything it touched caught fire. He turned blind corners, shoved himself into side halls. He thought he lost it just for a breath, but then the silence returned, and he knew it was close. At last, he found a narrow crawl between two pipes and shoved himself inside, pressing flat against the wall. His chest barely rose. He forced the air to trickle through his nose, slow, slow. The thing thundered past the mouth of the crawlspace, the pipes bent under its weight. For a moment, the air itself felt molten. Then the machinery roared back to life, and the monster was gone. Martin slid down against the pipe, shaking. He pressed his palm to the metal and snatched it back. There was blood smeared there. Not his. A handprint dragged across the pipe. The edges dried dark, but the center still tacky. He wasn't the first to hide here, but where were the others? The longer he wandered, the more the place got inside his head. The whispers slithered back, not just echoing him now, but guiding him. This way. Turn here. There's water ahead. He wanted to resist. He tried, but his tongue was cracked and his lungs begged. And still he followed. At the end of one corridor, he found a door that didn't belong, not like the others. This one was steel, with a wheel lock like a submarine hatch. The whispers grew so loud they nearly split his skull. He spun the wheel, pulled the door open. Cold air spilled through, cool and sharp, smelling faintly of ozone. It felt like salvation. He stepped through. The door slammed behind him. He'd traded heat for something worse. The new place was vast, a labyrinth of concrete chambers lit by fluorescent lights that flickered in and out, cutting the world into stuttering snapshots. Every time they failed, the darkness pressed close, heavy as a hand on his throat. Cables sprawled across the floor like roots. They pulsed faintly, carrying some current that made the air taste metallic. Massive generators loomed in the dark, humming low, sweating condensation. Level 3. The electrical station. He crept forward. His foot crunched against broken glass, the sound ricocheting into 1,000 echoes. For a heartbeat, he thought an army had risen behind him, and then the lights went out. The dark was absolute. He froze, breath shallow, click, 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 footsteps, slow, patient, coming closer. The lights snapped back on, and the hall was empty. They flicked off again. The clicks were louder now. Martin stumbled forward, hands stretched to feel the walls. The lights gave him quick flashes, a sparking panel, a toppled machine leaking fluid, a smear of something dark on the concrete, and then, for just a moment, a figure at the far end of the hall, still, watching. The lights went out, the clicks were right behind him. He ran blind until his foot snagged a cable and he pitched forward. His hands smacked the floor, pain lancing up his arms. The lights flicked on again, and he saw what he'd landed near. A boot, attached to a leg. The body was half hidden between two machines. Clothes shredded, skin blistered, as though burned by lightning. One arm stretched outward, fingers frozen in a clawing gesture. Clutched in the hand was a scrap of paper. Martin pried it free with shaking fingers. The words were short, ragged. Don't let them speak for you. The lights flickered. The clicks were beside him. He turned his head slowly and saw nothing. Martin didn't remember when he started running. Maybe it was when he saw the body, maybe when he read the note. But by the time the lights blinked out again, his legs were already moving, cables whipping at his shins, the air sharp with ozone. The clicks never stopped. Always in rhythm with him, patient and steady, like something wasn't chasing him so much as hurting him. Then the lights came back, and he found himself standing in a junction. 3 hallways all the same, concrete, cables, dripping condensation. He turned one way, then another, dizzy, his mind unraveling, and the whispers rose again. Left, left, faster now. No, straight ahead. You're so close. Don't think, just obey. He pressed both hands to his ears, but it didn't matter. They weren't sounds anymore, they were thoughts, his thoughts. And he realized, in a rush of nausea, that he wasn't choosing where to go. He was following instructions. That note burned in his pocket like a brand. Don't let them speak for you. He staggered into a chamber, larger than the others, and there it was, a door. A wooden door, white paint, brass knob. A glow spilled through the cracks, soft and golden, like the light of late afternoon on his street back home. Martin froze. His chest tightened. For a heartbeat, he wanted to collapse to his knees and weep, because that glow, it looked like salvation. The whispers surged. Yes, open it, quickly now. This is the way out. He took a step closer, hand shaking. The knob gleamed. He touched it. Warm, too warm. Not the warmth of sunlight, the warmth of something alive, something that had been waiting for him. Martin yanked his hand back, bile flooding his mouth. The whispers turned shrill. Open it. You can't leave otherwise. Do it now. The golden light flared brighter, cracks crawling across the door like veins. He backed away, shaking his head, tears cutting clean lines through the grime on his face. The door wasn't an exit. It was bait. He ran again, deeper into the station. The halls shifted. Some widened into cavernous rooms where machines the size of buildings pulsed and sighed like lungs. Others pinched into crawl spaces that scraped his shoulders raw. And all the while, the whispers adapted. Sometimes they begged, sometimes they mocked, sometimes they spoke in his own voice, but describing things he hadn't yet done. You'll turn right, good. Keep going, you'll kneel, you'll beg, you'll stop fighting soon. He clutched the note like it could anchor him. He forced himself to think of anything else. Rain against his apartment window. The smell of coffee cooling on his desk, the way a woman from down the hall used to smile at him in the mornings. Mundane things, human things. And for just a moment, the whispers faltered, like insects scuttling away from a sudden flame. He came to a staircase. This one went up. A thin metal spiral bolted into the wall, steps slick with condensation. A red glow bled down from above. He climbed, hand trembling on the railing. each groan of the metal stairs making his heart stutter. At the top, on a small platform, was a chair, the same chair he'd seen before in the Chamber of Papers, upright, waiting, and on it, the reel-to-reel recorder. This time, a tape threaded through its spools, spinning slow. The moment Martin stepped closer, it crackled to life. His own voice spilled out. "You'll sit, you'll listen, you'll stop fighting." Martin shook his head. "No." The tape whirred faster. "You were never supposed to leave. You'll belong here. You already do. Sit." He staggered back, bile rising, the whispers pressing harder in his skull until he couldn't tell which thoughts were his. He raised the note. His hands shook, but he clung to it like a knife. "Not yours," he rasped, throat torn raw. For the first time, the voices faltered. The recorder stuttered, the tape shrieked and tangled, spooling across the floor. The lights overhead popped one by one, bursting in showers of sparks. The chamber sank into black. And in that black, silence, real silence, Martin stood frozen, trembling. For the first time since this nightmare began, there was no hum, no groan, no whisper. He was alone in his own head. He wanted to laugh, but he didn't trust his voice anymore. The recorder lay dead on the chair, its reels still, and then the glow behind him flared. He turned, another door, not wood this time, steel, industrial, a glowing green exit sign above it. He almost collapsed with relief. He staggered toward it, every bone in him screaming that this was the way out. But the note in his hand whispered its own warning. Don't let them speak for you. The whispers hadn't returned, but maybe they didn't need to. Maybe the door itself was their voice. He stood there, torn, chest heaving, tears streaking down his face. He wanted it to be real. He needed it to be real. And then his foot hit the platform hard, echoing louder than it should have. Too loud. Dozens of echoes answered back, like an army stepping in unison. And from the dark came a chorus of his own voice. Go on, try it, see where it takes you. Martin froze. His legs buckled. The railing behind him gave way with a snap, and he fell. The drop had no end. Weightless, spinning, silence swallowing him whole. When he looked at the note clenched in his fist, its words were gone. The paper was blank, and still in the dark below, the whispers waited. If you enjoy this video, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. It truly helps us make more of this type of content.